there's been some pretty rough patches in the road, and we'll talk about all those in the future. But the things that we typically tend to argue about the most are, let's just be honest, ladies, there are times of the month whenever our hormones are going crazy and we are edgy and cranky, and as sweet as I may appear to all of you guys, yeah, if I get hot and irritated and it kind of gets snippy, then that will greatly offend you and you'll get upset and, kind of stay upset for a while, because I can say things that will either make you feel dumb or just tick you off, just to put it bluntly, Those are kind of mostly the things that we tend to argue about. Not really anything major, no. But it's not always healthy either, because I think you have been in a habit of pretty much, I would have to say it in all honesty, I get my way on most things. And not because I pitch a fit to get my way, like a lot of ladies will, or a lot of husbands will. I get my way just because you give it to me. Is it because you just genuinely want me to enjoy life that you give me pretty much everything I want? Or is it really just because you may disagree with me a lot, but you just don't want to discuss it? Or what do you think the reason is? To help all of them, because some of them may be in the same situation that'll help them understand why their spouse always seems to give in.
Well, it's just like I said before, in the grand scheme of things, it's small. It's not just like when we've been looking for like silverware. There's a style that I'm more prone to, and there's a style that you're more prone to, but in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter to me. It just doesn't.
In the grand scheme of things, it really matters to me.
So.
Go ahead.
And I can't think about anything else. Well, just like we talked about the paint when we were deciding on what color of paint for the walls. I really didn't have much of a preference. So, as long as it wasn't butt ugly, I was okay with it.
Yeah, well, the one thing that you definitely did put your foot down on the paint was, I wanted to accent in the bedroom with pink. And you said, no, we'll draw the line there. So we settled for the turquoise. That's how the turquoise and the teal came to be so prominent, because you didn't want pink in our bedroom. You remember that? You don't?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Because I wanted the zebra wall. And I had showed you something that had the pink accent. And I said, see, I can bring a little bit of the pink in. And you said, no.
Even the zebra wall was a little bit of a stretch for me. But I'm like...
It's just paint. If he ends up not liking it, we can paint over it.
And I'm not in there much. So, and when I am, I'm sleeping. So.
Yeah, and the reality of it is, though, as someone who does tend to get their way more often than not, first of all, I really do think, even though it sounds like, okay, she gets her way all the time, I think just about everything that we've done, or the results of our conversation, whatever we're trying to decide about, it's never been, at least in my opinion, something that I have stood my ground on so much that it was something that you hated. Because I think in the long run, even though it seems as though I've gotten my way, it's always something that is really works out good for everybody. I mean, would you feel that way?
Yeah, because I don't hate it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not like, I hope you guys aren't taking this picture away like, wow, she's some selfish old thing that just always gets her way and everybody else suffers. Because it's really, we try not to make it like that at all. And
well, I think we try to give even more preference to what the kids want most of the times. So, and there's just a few times to where we consider their input, but we make the decision. But
because even going like to the paint for the walls, like I knew that I wanted a shade of gray in here, and we picked up several, like 4 or 5 different shades of gray, and had swatches all over the wall before we decided on one. And we considered everybody's opinion. Everybody in the family had a say and had a vote. And in the end, the gray that we chose is one we all agreed on. Like, I don't think that there was one of the grays that somebody felt like they lost out because they just really liked it. I think that we all kind of came to that decision together, don't you?
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember that there were a couple different versions of grays, and they were, to me, similar enough to where I'm like, well, I kind of prefer that one, but I could go with either one of them. So,
So that's kind of just, I don't think it's ever good when one person does always get their way if it's at the detriment of other people in the family, or if the other person feels like they don't have a voice. So let me ask you that question. Do you feel like you don't have a voice in the giving in or giving me my way, so to speak? Do you feel like you're lost and you just don't even have a voice or an opinion in things, and that it's just got to be her way or no way?
no, I think I do because you ask. But like I said, a lot of times for me personally, it's, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but it's not really a big deal. So, when you're talking about paint or different styles or colors, as long as it's not brown.
Yeah, I don't like brown
okay
either, so we're good. So the bottom line is, I think in anything that may be a dispute in your home between you as a couple or even a family issue, because you got to remember, if you guys have children, you're not the only two in your home. And every decision that you guys make also affects the other people that are living there with you guys. And I think everybody needs to be able to have a voice and a say within the family. Does that mean that everybody at the end of the day is going to feel like they got their way? No, because a relationship is all about compromise. That has been one of my most used words, I think, since the day that we got married. It's all about compromise. There are times that I have to take a step back and say, okay, you're right. And he has to take a step back and say, okay, you're right. And that's why the conversation is needed. It is so necessary to discuss differing opinions, because you've said things at times that I've never looked at from that perspective. And it opens my eyes to see, because I'm very passionate and I think that I'm right, because obviously that's why I have the opinion. But when you do speak up and you do say things, I'm like, okay, I've never looked at it from that side. And then vice versa. Whenever I argue my point, so to speak, it helps you to see things from a perspective you've never seen it from that way before. Then you can come to a compromise where everybody wins. And maybe that's why, we feel like there's not really a lot of disputes or arguments as far as decisions that we make around here.
No, and I know there have been times too to where you would feel strongly one way, I would feel strongly another, and there's been times to where we've actually put all the options in a hat and we drew. I mean, because you can't get any more fair than that. So,
and I just think that you got to keep the level of communication open and don't be defensive, because I know that you and I both, probably more so you, but also myself, when someone does have a differing view on whatever the situation is, you can feel defensive, because instead of feeling like the person is not agreeing with your view on the subject, it's almost like they just don't agree or approve of you as a person, because they're not agreeing with what you're thinking at the moment. And that can be a big thing in relationships, and that can cause a total breakdown in communication. Because when a spouse reacts defensively, it causes the other person to escalate, and then the defensive person escalates even more, and before you know it, you guys have a full blown out war. And it's just simply because of communication style. I've had to learn how to soften up, and I can say I have not fully arrived there yet, but I've come a long way with how I approach situations, because I am so passionate, and because I'll talk about things so passionately and so, like it's an emergency right now, and that has a lot of times made you feel like you were being attacked. Mm-hmm. And then there are other times that, no matter even how I said it, because of just things that had gone on in your own mind, that you would be like, okay, she's just attacking me here, or she just doesn't approve of me as a person, so I would just feel safer not to even tell her my opinion, because I know it's different than hers.
At times.
Yeah. So communication is key, and safety is key. And I think another thing to remember is that even if your spouse doesn't like your opinion on whatever it is that you're discussing or arguing about, or disputing was the word that Michelle used. If you're in a dispute about something and your spouse has a differing opinion, they're not your enemy. And it can be sometimes hard to remember that when you're in the midst of what you feel is a battle over who's going to win, who's right and who's wrong. Because really, if one person wins, both people lose.
Right.
There shouldn't be one winner. It should never be that way. And if you or your spouse ever feels like, well, good, I got my way on that, or I won, that's just not healthy. Do you think?
No. And I think if you go back to the biblical standpoint, if you prefer others above yourselves, that will eliminate a lot of disputes. Because like I said, for me, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really a big deal.
It will. And there have been times, to further answer the question, that we just could not come to an agreement as far as neither one of us might have really known, well, we don't know the right thing to do, and you don't know the right thing to do, and we don't know how to handle this situation. We don't know how to come to an answer, that we have actually taken time to not discuss the issue for a set amount of days, and you pray and seek God, and me pray and seek God, and then come back together after a few days and talk about, okay, what are you feeling now, and what are you feeling now, to come to a decision. And when we have done that, the amazing thing is we come back with the very same answer, because we both separated ourselves into God to hear His answer, and of course then we've both heard the same answer.
Yep.
So you really cannot leave God out of the equation at all. And I know that may sound cliche for some of you guys, but in every single thing, if you are thinking about your spouse or your kids or other people as more important than you are, like what you were just saying, and when you're really trying to seek His answer to some of your problems, then you're going to realize that, okay, maybe it wasn't so necessary that you got your way after all. Because I'll say it again, I believe it with all my heart, if one person wins, both of you lose. It really should not be, because if you have a winner, that means you have a loser.
Yep.
And if you look at it that way, it's, and it's just not worth it, because like you said, in the grand scheme of things, at 50 years down the road, hopefully you're still going to be married to each other, and you're going to look back and realize that just about everything you fought about and things that you allowed to come in and drive a wedge between you really wasn't worth it anyway. I mean, it really, and the grand scheme of thing, really doesn't matter. We can eat off of plastic silverware if you want, as long as we're together and connecting,
True.
So anyway, Michelle, I hope that answered your question. That can be a big one. And if you think about it for just a moment, and let's just pretend Michelle were in our office and had come in for some counseling, and she had asked, because she asked how we settle disputes, and I think we've pretty much answered that as far as us personally. But if the underlying question really is, what's the best way for me to handle a dispute with my spouse, what would you tell her?
I would say to look at the significance of the issue that's at the dispute. I mean, what's the root of that? If it's something that is insignificant, is it really worth the dispute or the quarrel? But if it is something, then like you said, I think both sides need to separate and agree.
Not separate from each other.
No.
Just separate from the argument.
Right. And pray about it, giving ample time for there to be quality, effective prayer, and then come back and, like you said, see what the one person has to say, see what the other person has to say, and then come up with an educated decision from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the only thing that I would add to that is, very often I have asked couples, with each person sitting there, is to stop and really evaluate and ask yourself, how selfish am I? How self-centered am I? Is this just because I want my way? Because, the book of James tells us that true wisdom that comes from heaven is willing to yield. And I think that a person that is walking in wisdom, no matter what situation it is, anything that you could have a dispute about, if you are truly operating in wisdom, then you're going to be willing to yield your position sometimes so that your spouse can have their way, so to speak. And ask yourself that question and ask the Lord to show you, because if you ask him sincerely, he's going to show you everywhere where you are being selfish and self-centered. And when you see that and realize that, it's a lot easier to begin the compromising stance of marriage, because you're going to realize that I don't have to have my way to be happy. And if having my way means that my spouse is going to feel like they always lose out, then it's really not worth it in the end. And so that's just what I would have to say to that. So anything else you want to add to?
I got a question for you though.
Okay.
Does that make me very wise?
Yeah, you are very wise, and you really have a lot less stress.
Yep.
Because I am so passionate about things. Like, I'll get wind that, you know, something is going to happen, a situation or whatever the deal is, and I'm already like, well, it better not go down this way, or, you know, and I'm already tense. Like, I can already feel myself working out a solution to a problem we don't even know if it's going to be existent yet, because I am so passionate. So I think your laid back attitude about things probably gives you a lot less stress than what I probably go through.
Probably.
Yeah, because things, not that you don't care about life or care about things, but you are more, you know, you just handle it and go with the flow, so to speak, and you deal with it as it comes. And it's like I'm always trying to stay a step ahead and be prepared for when it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would definitely say you have a lot of wisdom with that. For sure. For sure. For sure. So anyway, Michelle, I hope that we answered your question there. I know this one took a long time. We try not to make these so long, but really when we're trying to answer your questions to give you guys the best advice that we can, it's kind of hard to keep it down to just 15 minutes. And
not for me.
No, not for you. Not for you, but it is for me. I want to make sure we cover all the bases and give them all perspectives and angles and something to think about.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that answered your question and that we were able to help you there. I know it's a big one, because every couple is going to have arguments, no matter who you are, no matter how much in love you are, your knight in shining armor and all this stuff. You're going to have disagreements because you're two separate people with two separate brains that see things from totally different perspectives, and it can cause disagreement. And learning how to deal with it the right way will definitely ensure the longevity of your marriage and the happiness of that duration. So anyway, thank you very much for joining me again.
You're welcome very much.
We've been enjoying this. At least I have. You've enjoyed it too.
Maybe not.
He's starting to enjoy it more. But anyway, we want to thank you all so much for sitting here with us for Real Talk, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.